Okay.
I am here.
Oh, great. Yeah, I can hear you.
Good to see you, brother.
Yeah, same here.
I know. So wonderful.
Yeah. So we will start soon. Let me share this first. Yeah. Okay, venerable members of the Mahasangha, dear friends who are joining us online on Facebook and YouTube, we monks would like to welcome all of you to our bi-weekly sutra discussion. For past a couple of weeks, we had 2 sessions, and those sessions went well. And today, this is going to be our 3rd bi-weekly sutra discussion in English for the greater benefit of everyone. So we are going to begin this session by paying respect and homage to the Buddha by reciting Namo Tassa 3 times together. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma
Sambuddhassa.
Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo
Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa.
So, dear friends, first week we had a great discussion on the Metta Sutta, and based on that discussion, we monks felt to have another discussion based on the same sutra, the qualities and the virtues found in the same sutra. And so we have come up with a topic, what we call it, personality development. And there are a lot of people who greatly enjoyed that session, and they found it very interesting. And based on the same session, so we felt like telling some stories to the people. So we have come up with a topic, we call it Applied Skills and Virtues of Personality Development, Inspiring Stories and from Past and Present. So we monks had this friendly discussion how to set this up, and there are 15 skills and virtues described by the Buddha. Those are great skills for a great personality. And so we thought this time we should tell some stories, maybe from the text, maybe from the modern textbooks, or whatever stories you know that good for applied skills and virtues, which are good for the personality development. And so we have sent out an email to all the venerables, the monks and nuns who are joining us from different cities, and they have signed up for each skill and virtue to tell a story. Since we have limited time, we cannot just kill time by talking about everything, but we are going to try to stick to the topic and tell a good story for the greater benefit of our friends who are watching us from different countries. So each monk each nun. Of course, we have two nuns, and the Ayya Soma from New York and Bhikkhuni Vimala from Chicago. And so I'm trying to include, everyone in this discussion. So venerable monks and nuns signed up for each applied skill and virtue. And our first applied skill and virtue is sakko, which means being able or ability, capability, or being dexterous. So I would like to respectfully invite Venerable Bhikkhuni Vimala to tell us a story about Sakko, and you're getting 6 to 7 minutes. Venerable Bhikkhuni Vimala.
Thank you. I don't know if I'll even need all of my 6 or 7 minutes. I'll pass it on. So the first thing the Buddha said to the group he was talking to, that these are the things that these are already able, competent people that he's talking to, the monks, but he wanted them to be capable and competent and dexterous, that have dexterity, like you mentioned. And that's on top of already being very competent students of his who are wanting to go into deeper meditation and hopefully attain liberation. But he was, with the word sakko, he's talking about, the Buddha was talking to his monks about things like being able to take care of themselves, mending their robes. If their begging bowl needed to be mended, they would be able to repair it or fix. If there was a leak, I guess they needed to be competent enough to fix that, and to do things that would help their noble friends or people that they might meet, or just taking care of things. So the first two people I thought of the Buddha, and I thought of his son Rahula. So the Buddha, because the Buddha was, and then I have a personal present day person that I wanted to share. The Buddha had been trained to be a prince, a warrior. And so he had lots of skills that I think would have probably made him very competent to take care of himself in the years where he was an ascetic and searching for his truth. He knew how to shoot a bow and arrow. And I remember the story about him as a young boy mending the bird that his cousin Devadatta had shot, and with the arrow. And I could see him as a very competent person, able to take care of himself through several years of being an ascetic. And then Rahula became a little monk when he was 6 or 7 years old. And so he probably grew up to be a very capable, handy would be a word we'd use even, I think, that could mean sako, just able to make do with what you have and make things work, and make sure that your brothers who are with you are taken care of. If they can't do something, you can help out. So that they just came to my mind as examples I would think of. I'm sure Rahula learned all of his skills primarily from his older brother monks, because he was so young when he left the palace, and he probably didn't have to mend his clothes when he was in the palace. But then he had to learn to do all those skills from other older monks. And so those are the two I just thought of that came to my mind, who had those skills of already being skillful in their mental abilities and in their intelligence and their wisdom, but needed just the daily making things work in daily life. And then the one person I thought of right away was a nun who was also Wimala. She's Aya Wimala, and she lives in Belgium. And she's built and literally done it, physically built with the help of others, but she's built a monastery. And she was in California when I was at Mahapajapati Monastery. And she came from Australia, and she came to be there for a few months. She was a student of Ajahn Sujato and helping him with Sutta Central as a programmer and working a lot with the computer. So she was working on the Sutta Central program a lot, but anytime there was anything that had to be repaired, and we were out in the desert, and so there were a lot of things that would break, and very hard to get someone out to fix it. She always had her toolkit with her, and she would always put out the effort to give it, even if it was something she wasn't really comfortable doing, she would tackle the problem and do it wisely. I mean, she would help put down floors if we were building a new kuti, and she would volunteer to put down new floors and would help out any way that she could. And when she did leave, she went back to Europe and has built a beautiful monastery. And I think without that energy and that effort that she put into her capabilities, that monastery would not have gotten off the ground. I think a lot of it was her mental energy that made it happen. But she's my number one pick for a monastic with those skills of dexterity and competence.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. Even how you put. Obviously, Buddha was very able. He was very skilled, and so was his son, Venerable Rahula. And then I really like how you put it, Sako, being able to take care of themselves, or being handy wherever you go. I think that's beautiful. That is also a great skill for the personality development, right? Yeah. So thank you. And next, we would like to go to the next skill, virtue, and that is ujuja sujuja. And we actually did not have anyone for that, but I'm very grateful to Bhante Dhammaloka, who replied to us yesterday. And he said he would like to tell a story about Ujuja Sujuja, which is upright and exceedingly upright. Bhante Dhammaloka from Sri Lanka. You had to unmute, Bante.
Hello, everyone. Yes, as Bante Saranpada mentioned, at the last moment, I noticed that no one has taken Ujucha, so I try to tell a story about it. Ujucha Sujucha, upright and exceedingly upright. Actually, this could come within oneself due to all the other skills and every qualities mentioned in Karaniya Metta Sutta, like Sakko and all the other qualities. This should come within. So, to be upright, basically one has to be honest. Honesty should be guiding this uprightness. There's a story. Before that, I would have to mention there are 4 kinds of extremes that the Buddha has taught, like Chanda, Dosa, Bhaya, Moha. Chanda, which means being sided because one likes to a person or something, one being one-sided. Then dosa means hatred, due to if one hatred has hatred towards someone, then that person would be also sided. Also, though that person is qualified, that can be rejected due to hatred. Then bhaya, fear. If one were to be fear out of someone, though that person is qualified and would not suggest. Moha, also delusion. So without going to those 4 extremes, being one-sided, hatred, fear, or delusion, one has to keep one's mind firm. That also can be explained as uju or suju, being upright. And so there's a story. Once the Bodhisattva was born as a prince, called his name was Mahinsasa. And then he had a younger brother called Surya or Surya, which means sun, the sun. Then his mother passed away untimely, and the king, his father, had another wife. She also had a son named Chanda. He was also so beautiful. Then the father king was so happy to see new baby, and gave a promise to give anything that she is asking for. So this wife said, no, not right now. I will ask that in the future, one day. And so keep that promise for the future. So when Chanda, the son, was Chanda, her son, was grew up, then this wife reminded the king of his promise to give anything when he asks. Then she said, I want you to make him the next succeed of the kingdom to become the king. Then he said, no, it cannot be done because there are 2 elder sons. So I have to give the chance for them. Then she was insulting him, saying that this would go to the history as the first king who would not keep his promise, even to his own wife. So again and again, doing so many things. So the king asked 2 elder sons to leave the palace for their own protection, and she might do something against them. And so by seeing this, youngest brother also, and Chanda, he also followed them, and not wanting to leave his brothers alone. And so they went to a forest. And one day, Mahinsasa, the eldest son, Bodhisattva, asked the younger brother to go and bring some water from a beautiful lake where he can see that. Yes, so when he went there, there was a water demon and he was captured. And then next brother, youngest brother, Chanda also went and same thing happened. This demon was asking what are the Deva Dharma, which means the world qualities of the ruling the earth. Humanity. What are those dharmas? Then no one knew that. So they were captured. And finally, Mahinsasa also went there, and he noticed many animals and many living beings have entered the pond, but no one has escaped, according to the footprints that he could notice. So he was hanging around. Then the demon, water demon, appeared and invited him to come and enjoy the water. Then he said he realized what's going on, and any creature would touch the water would be captured by this demon. So somehow again. This demon asked, what are the Deva Dharmas, or the world ruling Dhammas in this world? Bodhisattva Mahinsasa explained them as Lajja and Bhaya, spiritual fear, moral fear, and shame. So then this demon was so happy and asked him, if you want anyone out of those brothers, you can take them. Then he asked to give him the brother youngest one, Chanda. Then asked, why Chanda? Being Surya is your own brother, full brother. Then he said, hold the story. If I go back only with Surya, then I would be blamed, being biased to my own brother. So I don't want to do that. So in that way, risking his own life, his own brother, Bodhisattva has kept uprightness, and that would be uprightness and exceedingly uprightness. I think this is a kind of long story. I tried to make it as short. But thank you very much. That's my story.
Yeah, no, thank you, Bhante Dhammaloka. That was a good story. I think it's a long story, but you did a good job. I think those who want to read that story, you can read the Mahinsasaka Jataka story. And so what it means is like you don't take side and you just remain impartial. Impartiality is very important. This is part of the Uju Suju, being upright and being exceedingly upright. So thank you for telling this story. And next, we would like to go to next applied skill and virtue, which is suvacho, meaning obedient. So I would like to invite Bhante Pemaratana from Pittsburgh to tell us a story about obedience.
Thank you very much, Bhante. And my respect and veneration to all the members of the Mahasangha. And so suvacho is usually understood as obedient. But if you think about literal meaning, suvacho, it could also mean willing to listen. Like willing to listen and like willing to take advice from others, willing to learn. So definitely it has element of being obedient too. But it's really important quality that Buddha has given here as a supporting quality to practice loving kindness is to being willing to listen to others. And because I think most of our difficulties and also problems with our relationships comes when we are not ready to listen to the other party, right, Bhante?
Yes,
so, yes. But in this case there's also a special meaning that we should be willing to listen to our elders and should be willing to listen to people who have more experience than us. It could be our parents, it could be our teachers, it could be any other person who has some more experience than we have. So we should be like willing to listen to them and we should be willing to take their advice seriously. I think the best story we find in the Buddhist literature is Bhante, the story of little monk Rahul, the Prince Siddhartha's son, who later became a novice monk called Rahul. And in the Pali commentarial literature, we find this interesting story of Venerable Rahul. And as a little monk, and he was taken care of by two all other senior monks, but mainly the Venerable Arahant Sariputta was his teacher who will take care of his study, his knowledge, his Dhamma knowledge. And then Venerable Arahant Moggallana was responsible for his moral conduct. So they were watching him, looking after him from both sides. But of course, Buddha has also kept an eye on him. And there are a number of discourses we find in the Pali Canon where Buddha give direct instructions to Venerable Rahul. And according to our commentarial tradition, this little monk Rahul had an interesting habit. And he will wake up early in the morning and he will clean the monastic compound, the environment, yard. He will clean everything. And then he has a kind of practice, kind of ritual that he would do every day. He will take a handful of sand to his hand, to his palm, and make a wish. Every day, make a wish that today, may I receive as many instructions as the number of grains in this sand. And then he will make that wish. Such a great wish that, wishing that every day, may I receive as many instructions, as many advices as the grains of this handful of sand. And that was his wish. So every day he did that wish. He was a junior monk. He has a lot to learn. And of course, usually he could have easily been an arrogant person, being the son of the Prince Siddhartha, right? And he could be an arrogant person. But in that case, if he were an arrogant little monk and he will not evolve, he will not learn anything, he will it will not be for his benefit. But very interestingly, this young little monk has this interesting wish to make that wish that may I receive this many instructions, may I receive many instructions, may I receive many advices from senior monks. Because of that wish, everybody knew that he was suvacho, means that he's easy to talk to, and he's listening. He's someone, we can call it obedient, but obedient doesn't necessarily means that he's submissive, like always like submissive, but he's willing to listen. He was willing to learn. That's the whole idea of Suvacho. So everybody was supporting him, helping him, even though when they see his mistakes and weaknesses, they will not condemn him, they will not blame him, but they will kindly tell him, because he was willing to listen, he was willing to learn. So he received so many instructions, so many advices from all different monks, but especially also from the Buddha. That is why we have suttas called Rahul Vada Sutta, right? Ovada. Ovada means like instructions and advices. So Buddha has advised to Venerable Rahul, because he was willing to receive advices from all different kinds of monks. I think that story can really help us to like reflect on ourselves, that whenever we want to do something, and whenever we behave in this world, we should always should be willing to listen to others' opinion, but particularly willing to listen to advices, instructions from our elders, and that can really help us to practice our own loving kindness definitely, and also grow as a person. And if you are not listening, and we are not learning, right? And only listening allows us to learn, and also willing to like take those advices seriously, and then think what I can change. I think so Venerable Rahul can be a good example for us. If we can every day make that wish, how wonderful it is, right, Bhante? Every morning we can make a wish, oh, may I receive as many advices as as these grains of the sand. I mean, at least make the wish that may I receive advice and instructions from my seniors, from my elders, from my friends today. So if we can make that wish, how wonderful it is. Yes.
I think Bhante Pevaratan, you have beautifully explained that special skill, the suvacho, obedient, as you said, that's a great story of Venerable Rahula. That is I see being obedient obedience is the opposite of the ego, right?
Yes, definitely.
Like he could have been a very high considered person, the monk. Hey, this is Buddha is my father. Who you to tell me this? But he went opposite.
Yeah, Bhante, it happened to Venerable Channa.
Yeah.
Remember the Channa,
Yes,
who was the charioteer of the Prince Siddhartha?
Yes.
Yeah. And it happened to him, but fortunately, Venerable Rahul was willing to listen. And
these are great stories. Maybe in coming days, we will be able to tell those stories too, the story of Venerable Channa.
Yes.
So thank you for beautifully telling this story and explaining the nature of Suvacho, willing to listen or willing to take advice from others, especially elders, as many instructions as possible from everyone. So for our next quality, actually, we don't have anyone signed up for that, but maybe later on, if we have time, we can discuss about that, Muddu and Anatimani, being gentle, humble, and not conceited. But let us skip that one for the time being. Next, we would like to go to next quality, applied skill and virtue for personality development. That is the santusako to subharocha, being contented and easily supportable. So for this one, I would like to invite the Bhante Suddhaso from New York. This is your first time, Bhante Suddhaso. You got 6 minutes.
Thank you, Bhante Sarnapala, for inviting me to join. And thank you to all the venerables for your attention and for the sharing that you've done and will be doing. This topic, the topic of contentment and being easy to support is something that's very important to me in particular. So the practice of contentment to me is very closely related to upekkha, equanimity. And also it's connected with happiness and also with renunciation, nekkhamma. So in order to be content, we have to be willing to let go of what we want. We have to let go of our desires, our obsessions. And we have to be willing to face our present moment experience without desire or aversion. So that means cultivating equanimity, upekkha. And for being easy to support, so this means not being a burden to others. So the word subharo, so su means easy or good, and bara means burden. So subharo means a good burden. So the lay people have taken us up as their burden. They've taken on the responsibility of making sure that we are looked after and taken care of. So then we have a responsibility of not being too much, not being too hard to take care of. So when I saw that I was assigned to this quality of Santusiko Chasuburo, what came to mind for me was a story of my preceptor, my Upajjhaya, so Ajahn Pasanno. Many years ago, he was doing a long personal meditation retreat in a cave in Thailand. So just by himself for many months in a cave. And he had one layperson who was feeding him. And this layperson was a Thai man who had the belief that Westerners couldn't possibly eat Thai food. So this Thai man was cooking the only Western food he knew how to make, which was eggs. He knew how to make omelets, fried eggs. That was the only thing he knew that wasn't Thai. And so he kept giving Ajahn Pasanno fried eggs every day. That was the only thing he would feed him. But my preceptor was practicing with this wish of being content and easy to support. So he never complained. He never asked for any different food. He never said what he would want or what he would like. He just kept eating the same fried egg over and over again, day after day after day, and spending his time meditating and practicing very diligently and cultivating this quality of contentment, of not being a burden. And it wasn't until he started to get sick that his lay supporters realized that you actually can't just eat eggs all the time. It's not good for you. You need to have a more balanced diet. But still, my preceptor was committed to this practice of contentment, of saying, they're feeding me, they're trying to take care of me. Maybe they're not doing it in the best way, but they're trying. And the conditions are good. I can practice meditation. I can do my studies. I can really try to make this work. So for me, this is a great example of this. And one might say that one shouldn't take this too far. We do, of course, have rules in the Vinaya that we are allowed to ask for certain foods or certain medicines if we're sick. So if our health calls for it. But it really strikes me that, again, with this story of my preceptor, it wasn't until he started to get sick. And even then he didn't say anything. It was only when the lay supporters noticed that he was getting sick that they started to give him a more balanced diet. So for me, this quality of contentment, of being content with any kind of robe, any kind of food, any kind of dwelling place, any kind of medicine, and not asking for anything special or anything extra unless it's really needed. So that's the story I'd like to share with all you venerables today. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you, Venerable Sudaso, for telling that story of your teacher Ajahn Pasanno, and of course, as monks, monks are not allowed to be a burden to people, no others. It's very important to keep in mind, and even our teachers always encourage us, gave us the training not to ask for anything from the lay people and just be happy with whatever. I think that is also, like, I really love how you put it, Subaru, good burden. And so good burden means, like, you are easily supported. Like, you're not, as people say, you're not a pain in the something. So that people will not run away from you. So anyway, so thank you for telling that story, Venerable Sudaso. So next, I would like to go to another applied skill and virtue for the personality development. That is appakicho sallahukavutti, which means with but few responsibilities of simple livelihood. So to tell us a story, I would like to invite Bhante Kamalasri from Minnesota.
I respect to all of reverends, the monks and nuns. These two qualities, appakichocha sallahuka utti. We can translate this as unbusy and simple in livelihood. The opposite of these words, we can see it also in Sutra Pitaka. Most of people who visit Buddha and listen to him, just after Buddha's teaching, they said, Bahukichamayam Bahukaraniya. We are so busy, too busy, and we have to do so many things. Therefore, we are hurried to go. Then the Buddha has advised to us to be unbusy and simple in livelihood. But we have to be careful with these words, how to explain it, because someone can use it to be lazy. And someone can use it to avoid responsibilities for negligations. But here is no that meaning. Actually, it must be efficient and productivity. Life must be that. That is the development also. That is the developing of human personality. Yeah, I like to get an example. There's a telephone. Before 4 decades ago, what is the telephone? It is a big instrument connected to cord system and connected to the network within wires. But when we go and try to take a call or ring someone, I think everybody have that experience. Always the telephone says busy.
Yeah.
But now our telephone is a very tiny one. We can take it everywhere. Easily, we can use it easily. But anytime it is not say busy. If it is busy, there is a solution. That is why we say it is the developed technique, developed technology, hybrid technology. Then we also must be that. We must achieve our goals. We have to take our responsibilities. We have to do everything. But our method must be efficient and productivity thing. That is, we have to understand with this word. Then there is a nice story from a Zen monastery. There was one master, he called 2 of his disciples, and he said them, I will leave from monastery now, and I will back evening. And he said, both of you have duty. And he saw 2 rooms and said, you have to fill these 2 rooms with whatever, anything. Then he left. Then one of a student, then who is obedient, who is suecha. Then he thought how I can do it. Then he found some quantity of cotton, and he started to fill the room. Then he took a couple of hours for that. But the other student, he was not busy, he was not hurry. He did his other day-to-day walks and his studies, and he was calm and peacefully. Then in the evening, master came, then he asked from them. Then they said, yes, we did. Then he first went to the same room which was with full with cottons. It was in dark, but it was full with cotton. And he went next room. Then he saw the second student. He have bring a candle and matchbox, and he kept it middle of the room and lit it. Now whole room is with light, full of light. Then what happened? In simple way, in unbusy way, he did it. Therefore, if we want to be unbusy, or if we want to simple in livelihood or simple life, we must be intelligent. And we have to use good technique for that to achieve the goal. We not avoid the goal. We not avoid goal. What we have to do, the best way to achieve the goal. That is the meaning of unbusy and simple in livelihood. Then it is very important for the way to Nibbana also, because we make it also as a complicated thing. Yeah. Path of Nibbana also complicated thing. It also busy. It also not simple. Yeah. Therefore, we must try to understand how to attain Nibbana in a simple way and unbusy way. I think that is enough for this explanation.
Bhante, shall I ask you a question? What is the simple way to Nibbana? Unbusy way? I think majority of the listeners would be interested in that one. Maybe later on. Just think about that. Otherwise, it's going to take to another great discussion.
Actually, the way of Nibbana is simple. That is the only thing. Understand what is the Nibbana and happy with Nibbana.
Yeah, and I think the theories are making perceptions, views are making it complicated, very busy.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante.
We are also busy to teach Nibbana.
Yeah. That's the best way to put it. I really love this. It's hilarious. I think I also love that story and how they use their intelligence to fill the room, The unbusy, the smart, intelligent monk filled the room with light. It was full. Whereas the other one was so busy with filling it with the cottons. Okay, so now our next applied skill and virtue for the personal development is Santindriyo, which means control in the senses. So for this presentation, to tell us the story, I would like to invite Ayya Soma from New York. Ayya Soma.
Thank you, Bhante. And thank you to all the Venerables for coming together today. I'm actually very humbled to be included in this group of Venerables with whom I studied when I was a lay person, and some who were also present at my Bhikkhuni ordination, and lots of my teachers. So I feel like I should not be here. But yes, thank you
But
for
that is a great privilege
yes.
to share your understanding, your insights, wisdom in front of the teachers.
I'll try my best. Yeah, well, first of all, what comes to mind is actually, since I'm still at the very beginning of my path, I'm a very young monastic, and the Venerables have shared a lot of enlightened stories. Perhaps I'll share a bit of more of my struggles with unenlightenment that are related with Santindriyo, which is, the definition of one who is whose senses are tranquil. So one who's controlling all the sense faculties, and that results in peacefulness, in not being enslaved fundamentally by eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, and all of the senses that we get. So like anything that is sight, sounds, smell, taste, touch, thoughts, a lot of different emotions that are happening right now, for example. So I can see in myself how right now, for example, I'm not experiencing necessarily a peaceful mind because I'm so agitated to be with all of you Venerables who are so much ahead of the time. So I would say that Santindriyo is more of an aspiration right now within my monastic life, but also an aspiration that is very concrete in seeing both in terms of how the Buddha is described, that before even talking in the suttas, people could understand straight away how, would notice straight away how he was controlled in the senses. And also, one of the things that inspired me to go forth was actually meeting so many Venerables who perhaps were still not fully enlightened, but yet had mastered in one way, shape, or form this sort of control over the senses, rather than being constantly enslaved with all, being pulled by everything that is in samsara. So perhaps the story that I will also share is we just came out at Ampli Monastery from a 2-month retreat where we were in silence and practicing a lot of meditation. And it was relatively, I have to say, easier for me to practice peacefulness in those conditions because the sort of inputs from the outside were very limited. Well, for a start, it was a silent retreat, so there was no talking. I come from Italy, we like to talk a lot. So once the option was removed, then I started noticing a lot of peace and calm appearing in the mind. But then after the 2-month retreat was over, and talking was a necessity, then I started noticing how at a certain point I couldn't stop talking anymore. There was this urge of talking to everyone about anything. But because I had spent 2 months in silence, I was able to notice the dukkha, notice the tension, notice both the craving, how I was actually, actively engaging in the action, but at the same time also noticing the suffering, the agitation that was coming with this tendency of mine, this craving of communicating with others. And how this is exactly the opposite of Santindriyo. So the opposite of being tranquil, the opposite of being in control with one's experience. But at the same time, how, it was also a beautiful realization of the first noble truth. So that there is suffering, and this is what suffering feels like. And this is also the second noble truth. This is the cause of suffering, desire. Has nothing to do with communication, but it has to do with the desire of wanting to communicate to others. And then the great news that there is an end of suffering. And I can see it. I can see it in my fellow monastic friends. I can see it in my teacher, Bhante Sudaso, who is ahead of me in the path. And I can see it, I've seen it from all the venerables here that I've met in real life in the past. And also I see it in the teachings of the Buddha. So it's a lot of constant inspiration that then is this fuel that makes me practice over and over, put effort in practicing the Noble Eightfold Path. And slowly but surely I see that it's leading towards the cessation of suffering. And so how it's such a beautiful gift to have still up to this day, the teachings. And tying it back to the Karaniya Metta Sutta, it's also incredible how the Buddha actually describes all of these qualities before even getting into metta. And so when I have a hard time practicing metta, then I remind myself that there's also all these beautiful qualities that need to be developed as preliminaries in order to fully be able to practice meditation for all sentient beings. So this is what comes to mind. I hope my unenlightened story is useful for anyone.
These are not unenlightened stories. These are enlightened stories. What you have shared with all the venerables, monks and nuns, and our lay people who are watching us. This is the true inspiration, even how your practice of Dhamma led you to become who you are today. And of course, I think I have intentionally signed you up for this special virtue, Santindriya, because I see the calmness, the tranquility, and I thought maybe there is something and what you have shared is so inspiring, and also is so true. Like when people go to a retreat, even those who go to 10-day retreats, after the retreat they all feel so calm. And they don't feel like talking about all the nonsense and being busy and looking into something. They are very happy, and you can see their tranquility in their faces, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, everything. So even your experience with 2-month meditation retreat, as you said, as an Italian, you feel like talking all the time, but the retreat calm you down, give you the tranquility. I think that is a wonderful personal story about the Santindriya, controlling the senses. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you, Bhante.
So we would like to move to the next applied skill and virtue. That is nipako, which means prudent or wise or skillful. And so to tell us a story, I would like to invite Bhante Jinananda from Ottawa, who is going to give a parliamentary speech all the way from the Parliament Hills.
Thank you, Venerable Sanapal, and very nice monks and nuns. And those who listen to us would be very happy to listen to beautiful stories from different monks related to different qualities of the Karaniya Metta Sutta. So without talking about the background story or any other stories about the Karaniya Metta Sutta, I should move to my story because it's a short time for me to give this story. So the word Nipako is coming in the middle of the 15 qualities. And what does it mean should be understood first. As Bhante Sarnapal said, it's prudence and wisdom and skillfulness. People might think that this quality is merged with the sakko, skillfulness, because it is also translated as skillfulness. Do we have the same qualities of a practitioner when he or she comes to this level of the 15 qualities, especially with Nipako? It is the number 12, as I remember. Let me explain this Nipako, or the prudent or skillfulness. Therefore, you understand what it is. According to my understanding, this is best translated as situational wisdom or positional wisdom. We have a very Sinhala language, Sthanojita Prajna. So this is the very important translation, situational or positional wisdom. So why this kind of quality we have in the 15 qualities of the Metta Sutta, and how we could apply this to increase our metta or other practices? That is a question to ask each and everyone. Friends, this Nipako covers a lot with regard to the Four Noble Truths and also the Noble Eightfold Path and every other important qualities of the Saddhamma. But I do not go into details of with regard to all these things, but it is simply using your wisdom for the moment, whether you are a monk or nun or layperson, whether you have any posture, you have to use this wisdom, the skillfulness of your mind to be away from problems and unwholesome deeds. This is again coming into application with regard to the completion of the previous qualities, because you cannot practice this particular wisdom focusing different practices, but it comes as a result of many good dhamma and discipline. So with regard to this Nipako, the special quality, prudent or situational or positional wisdom, we can take you into a very beautiful stanza uttered by the Buddha to a particular deity in Jata Sutta. Atapi Nipako bhikkhu, toimang vijjate jatang. A deity came to the Buddha asking, who is going to solve these problems, tangle, untangle. There the Buddha said that this one who has many, many good qualities, including the situational wisdom, could solve this problem of suffering. So my effort is to tell you a story to apply with this quality into day-to-day life. I can tell you a number of stories which relates to this Nipako or situational wisdom, but I select a couple of. One is from my own, because we can trash a lot of stories like Uttara at the time of the Buddha, how she used her kindness and compassion to save someone, particularly Sirima from misery, and she used her wisdom according to the situation. But my story is also significant to me, the way I use my wisdom to get out of a problem. One day I was traveling to some place in Sri Lanka. Actually, I was taking the bus. It was after my graduation, and I got a mobile phone for the first time in my life. So I was looking at the mobile phone while I was sitting in the bus, and the bus is moving very fast. And I hardly remember one person came and stand close to me in the middle of the bus. And after 1 minute, he took my mobile phone and saying that, oh, this is a very good phone, and I should keep it. And he put my phone into his pocket. Now I do not know what to do. It is the first mobile phone I own, and I did not have money to buy anyone, and I did not see anyone who is coming to buy me a new phone. Then I looked around, and I stood up and took the phone from the person's pocket, saying that it belongs to me, and I sat down. Then this person said that, okay, if it is yours, take it. If it is yours, take it. Then he got down from the bus immediately, and people, I was surprised to experience what I, had, and then I did not have any hostile feeling about that person, because I came to know that the conductor of the bus came and told me that he's a lunatic, he's an imbalanced person. He does this same thing for many people. Even he did to me one day. Maybe he has some fashion with the phone. That's why he did. So with that, I was thinking, what should I do if something sudden happened like that into my life? So with that in mind, I was driving down to Toronto one day. It was in 2010, while I was going to Detroit Katina ceremony, and I met with an accident. It's a huge accident with two more monks in the car. I was driving down. Then as soon after all these things happened, I was asking the most senior monks in our temples, he was there, did you experience Bhante suffering? This is how dukkha comes to us. Are you feeling suffering? That's what I asked for the first time. Then with that reminder about suffering and how could things change immediately, I was feeling so much, normal feeling. I did not fear at all, because I was able to use my wisdom to tackle with the horrible experience. So lastly, I would like to share the important story. Actually, there are beautiful stories like this, and like Venerable monks used at the time of the Buddha. But this story tells you how you use your wisdom according to the situation. My teacher, Most Venerable Kamburupitiya Vanaratan Nayakathera, he's famous in Sri Lanka, and he was in England for his PhD in 1972. And it was a time, I think, that Buddhism was becoming a popular tenant in the UK, in the Europe, according to my understanding. So my teacher, Most Venerable Kamburupitiya Vanaratan Nayakathera, was walking down for exercise in the park, and there was a fire brigade. There were, because of something happened there. So my teacher's costume, according to, as we know, the robe is unique to many people. And these fire brigade men came to my teacher and asked, who are you and what kind of clothes you use? Then my teacher said that, just like you, I am also a man who worked for the fire brigade. You guys extinguished the conventional fire when buildings and houses and properties and vehicle got the fire. And we, as the disciples of the Buddha, also extinguish fires within, and then everyone in this country and everyone in this world. So the fire we extinguish is not anything else but greed, hatred, and ignorance. So how my teacher used the positional or situational wisdom or nipako according to the situation. So after that, this guy who was listening to my teacher came to the London Buddhist Vihara to meet my teacher, and they somehow managed to meditate and read about Buddhism, and they became kind people, right? So we have a number of stories tell about Nipako, but according to the way people understand, I know that this quality is not common to many people, because it's not easy to understand. But with these stories, I guess you can get the meaning, and we need to have it. One day, actually, when I listened to this story from Venerable Sankhya, who is joining with us from Great Lake Buddhist Vihara, he told me one day that he experienced something strange. A girl came to the vihara for kind of need like meditation and counseling, and he was talking to that woman for some time, and he went into the room for some matters, and when he came back, this girl was with a knife, making like this. And as I remember, Venerable Sankhya used his situational wisdom to let this girl return and go out of the house. So we as monks have to use this situational wisdom, nipako, very much, because we are living in a society where there are so many enemies of mindfulness, wisdom, concentration. So it is a wonderful quality to practice.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante Jinananda. You actually told some beautiful stories, your own personal story, and your teacher's story, and Bhante Sankitja's story in Detroit. And even I really love how you used your situation wisdom to handle that man who grabbed your phone. And then your teacher in England, those fire marshals are extinguishing the external fire, and monks are also fire marshals. They're extinguishing the fire within, especially the fire of passion, anger, and ignorance. So these are beautiful stories. Thank you so much for enlightening us. Let's move forward. Next, applied skill and quality. The virtue of the personal development is apagabbo, being courteous. So to tell us a story, I would like to invite Bhante Vijita from Ottawa.
How many minutes do I have, Bhante?
6 minutes, maybe 5 to 6 minutes.
My respect to all the venerable bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. It's very fascinating to hear all the stories from different, life experiences and from the teachings of the Buddha as well. So the quality that I am going to share with you is apagabbo. That means not being stubborn. I use when I think of that this quality, the simile comes to me is a raw stick and a dry stick. So the raw stick is easy to bend, but the dry one is not that flexible. So I see this, that quality, it can be understood, that simile. And sometimes we have this stubbornness in our lives as well, and different levels. One of the downside of stubbornness and inflexibility is we may have lots of struggle in terms of bringing comfort and peace to our lives. Having that flexibility and not being stubborn and being open brings so much peace to oneself and many others around our lives. And I have experienced in monasteries, in different communities, sometimes when we meet people who are very strict with their behaviors, sometimes they don't want to change. They expect everything to be done their own ways. So it becomes very difficult for the people to, be with them. So therefore, this quality brings lots of freedom to oneself and others. I came to know one of the, real stories. This actually happened. I later read about this, and you may, know this story. This happened in Colorado in 1995. A mother, she had two sons. One was 3 years old. The other one was 6 years old. So she parked the car in front of her apartment and went to pick up something, and the boys was sleeping in the car. And there was a gunman. They were shooting around and happened to be around this neighborhood. So they were, mixed up the cars and started shooting this car, which there were two, young children. And so somehow her eldest son saved the life, but the younger one, died at the spot. And this was very, heartbreaking for this mother. Somehow the police found the guy who did shooting, and he was 15 years old at that time, a young teenager. So he was in prison for lifetime. And after 17 years, in 2012, this mother went to the prison. So by that time, the young child was, I think, 23. And this guy who shot her son was 33 years old. So this mother went to see this guy in prison and told him that I forgive you. And not only that, she told this guy that I'm going to adopt you as my own child. So as the stories, tells, this young guy started crying, and she did not stop visiting him and providing, support financially as well to meet his needs. And this is, I found this story is a great example to show this, flexibility. Sometimes we meet with some very heartbreaking situations in life. It can be, people, it can be situations, events. Some situation we can't change, like shooting, or giving back to the life of that little child. But through being flexible, through forgiveness, there's so much peace that we can create. So therefore, this story provides that example, how much we can earn by being flexible, but not being stubborn.
Yeah, no, that's a great story. It is amazing, who would ever think a mother whose son has been killed, and that same mother would be adopting the killer and supporting him. And I think it shows that this lady in Colorado definitely had this special skill, the virtue, the quality, and she was flexible. Maybe she understood this young man needs the help the most. So she was able to change. Thank you. And next quality is, actually I can give an option to Bante Kusala from Detroit, either to talk about Kulesu Ananogiddo, not hanker after association with families, or Mudu Anatimane, gentle or humble or not conceited, for 5 minutes. Tell a story. Whatever story you like to tell us.
Venerable Bantes and Ayas, I think I'm going to combine both qualities and share 3 stories. So this is the first, first of all, Kolesu Ananugidho refers to not being greedily attached to families. This is an important quality that monks and lay people both should have. And Mudu is softness that one should have. So at one point, there were these 2 monks. This is a famous story, and many people twist and change it when they share it. These monks were crossing a creek, a river, and there was the creek was flooded. There was a woman by the side of the river. She was very scared. She was not willing to cross it. She thought she was risking her life. So one of these monks was the teacher, And monks have these rules that, you know, they are not supposed to touch women. But the teacher decided to lift the woman, put her on his shoulder, and cross her to the other shore and put her down and went on with the journey. And his student monk was little upset about this whole incident. The teacher wasn't saying anything. So they went to the monastery, and you know, this student approached the teacher and asked, "Is it appropriate that you touched that woman, you held her, and you crossed her, you know, you helped her to cross that river?" And at that point, the teacher said, "Well, I have just put her down, you know, after crossing the river, I put her down. It looks like you are still holding her. If you are still carrying her with you, right? So this is something that could happen to venerable monks and lay people alike when we go on alms round for Pindapada, that we see beautiful things, we hear beautiful things, we come across beautiful scents and things that are fascinating. And sometimes we take them with us. And one time when this happened to a young monk during the time of the Buddha, Buddha was like, "You idiot, you have done it in your past life too." And when this little monk heard that, he felt embarrassed, because he could immediately sense that the Buddha knowingly spoke about this little monk's past life and brought it to him in front of him. He felt like his greediness, his attachment was unfolding in front of him, and he felt ashamed. He felt hiri and ottappa. So he felt like he had to stop this cycle for him to be free, to attain vimutti in his life. So in terms of speaking about lay people, I would say this other story. There was this husband who was attached to his office family. So he had this busy mantra in his mind. And whenever his wife told him to fix something in the house, for example, she would say, "Can you fix the sink? You know, it is leaking." And he would say, "I'm not a plumber." And sometimes she would say, "The washing machine is broken. Can you take a look at it?" And he would say, "I'm not a mechanic or electrician." And sometimes she would say other things, and he would always escape saying something. And one day he comes home only, to find out that everything has been fixed and his wife was happy. So he asked, "Who helped you?" At this point, she said, our neighbor came and helped. So what did he ask? So she said, "I could either bake a cake or kiss him." So he asked, "What did you bake for him?" And she said, "I'm not a baker." So, so this happens in families when they are too occupied with other things, that they forget the sense of connection with their own family. The last thing I have, this quality, I think this is related to softness, the mudita that we monks should have. This is a story from my father. He doesn't understand any English, so I can freely share the whole story here. Later in his life, when he became a monk, his teacher gave him a little training and sent him to a remote monastery that was built on top of a mountain. It's very hard to bring food to this place. And he was the only monk living there. And sometimes he had put these little rules. People are supposed to bring food by 11 in the morning. And when people happen to be a little late, he was very upset. My father used to think that I have strict Vinaya. I have my discipline, very, very well. So he thought he was doing the right thing. But some days he went to the extreme that when people happen to be slightly late, he would refuse to have their food. So I shared this story with Bhante Pemaratana one day, and something he said to me really struck my mind. He said, "Your father has Vinaya, but he doesn't have mudita, compassion.
Mm.
Vinaya alone does not help us. You need to be kind to yourself and to others. Then your life becomes so easy. And thank you, Bhante Pemaratana, for that moment of wisdom. I'm sure you remember that moment. This is why we all should share our, Dhamma stories together. I think these two stories tell us that, we should not be too attached to any family. And that gives, whether it is your own family or any other family outside, because this gives us time and freedom to be on our own and focus on our virtues and practice. Thank you.
Yeah, I think Bhante Kusala beautifully explained and told the stories about that Zen story, the teacher and the student monk, but regarding the woman and your father's story. I think all these stories contain deep wisdom, which could help everyone to have a strong, the wholesome personality. And so thank you so much for telling those beautiful stories and enlightening all of us. So now our last quality is Nachakuddang samachare kinchiyena vinyo parupavadeyang, which means avoid doing anything unworthy that wiser people would criticize. So to tell us a story, I would like to invite Bhikkhu Yutta Dhammo all the way from Niagara Falls. You have to unmute yourself, Yutta Dhammo.
Okay. Thank you, Venerable. Thank you, everyone. It's been an honor to be here. It's been quite a fun time listening to all the stories. So there's lots of stories about monks who are meticulous in their sila and meticulous in their practice, who don't do any small thing, kuda, right? Kuda means not even the smallest thing. But as the Venerable said, Venerable Kusala, right, that sometimes we get too caught up in our sila, too caught up in the rules. There's one story that really captures the idea of to me about being meticulous and having perfect conduct, really, like just not doing anything, no matter the situation, really just being the perfect person, really. It's the story of a novice who didn't ordain even of his own will. The story goes that there was a monk called Tissa, as many of the monks were called. And he, at the end of the rains, he was offered some robes and some jaggery, some medicines, let's say. But these are medicines that he couldn't keep for himself. And so he said, I can't take those because I don't have a novice to keep them for me. And the layperson said, well, take my son. He'll be a novice for you, a 7-year-old son. And I said, okay, well, if you'll ordain, sure. So he took the 7-year-old boy. He wetted his hair and he brought the razor to his head and he taught him the Tajapanchaka Kamatana, right? The Kesa, Loma, Naka, Tanta, Tajo, the 5 parts of the body. And as he was teaching this to him, as soon as the razor blade touched the novice's head, the novice became an arahant. He was so perfectly ready to become enlightened. That's all it took. And they traveled together after the rains was over. They traveled to see the Buddha. But on their way, they had to stay overnight, and so they ended up staying 2 nights in the same dwelling. And on the 3rd night, they came to a monastery, and the novice spent all his time preparing a place for his teacher to stay. He was very meticulous in his duties, so he set up a place for the elder to sleep. And it got dark, and the monk asked the novice, he said, do you find a place for yourself to sleep? He said, no, I was too busy, so I didn't have any time for that. And he said, well, then stay with me. That's fine. Now, the monk was not enlightened. He was not even a sotapanna. So when they went in, he brought the novice into the room, and as soon as he got into the room, he lay down and fell asleep. But the novice thought to himself, this is the third night. And he said, if I lie down, it won't be about me. This will be about my teacher. My teacher will break a precept because he can't stay 3 nights with me. And so he said, I'll sit up. No, he didn't have to do it. And it wasn't even a big rule, but he was meticulous and quite thoughtful, actually. And because he was an arahant, it didn't bother him at all. So he decided to sit all night. And in the early morning before the sun rose, the monk got up and realized, oh, he can't let the sun rise and stay with the novice. So it was pitch black. He picks up his fan and he taps the corner of the mat that the novice is sleeping on. He says, get up, you have to get up and go outside. And he threw the fan at the novice. The end of the fan poked into the novice's eye and destroyed his eye in the dark. And the novice put his hand up to his eye and said, didn't cry out, didn't say anything. He said, Venerable Sir, what did you say? And the monk said, go out, you have to go out. We can't stay together again. Yes, Venerable Sir. And he walked out, and with one hand on his eye, he took a broom and he swept out the latrines and he swept around the yard. He prepared water for the elder monk. And then he came back in with a toothbrush stick for the monk to brush his teeth. Very dark, hard to see. And he held this toothpick up to the monk. The monk, he said, Venerable Sir, your toothstick. And the monk said, Is this the novice I trained? This novice knows nothing about how to behave. Offering it to his teacher with only one hand. And he said, oh, my other hand is not empty. Natucha. It's not empty. Oh, what? What's wrong with your other hand? And then he told them the whole story. Immediately the monk went into shock and he completely freaked out. He bowed down to the novice at his feet and he said, I'm so sorry. Please be my refuge. I had no intention for that to happen. And the novice said, Venerable Sir, it's not your fault. This is the fault of samsara. It's a good story for the Metta Sutta, because he never had any thought of hatred towards or animosity towards his teacher. He was the perfect, ideal example. And they went to see the Buddha, and he said, Venerable, the Buddha said, how have you been? He said, I've been fine, but this novice, I can't believe, I've never seen such a thing. He said, what did he do? He told him the story. He said, and he harbored no resentment, and he told me instead that it wasn't my fault, and that it was the fault of samsara. So I like to think of that story for two reasons, of course. For one, for how he was so clear about, as things happen, no matter what happens, to see it just as experience, to see it as what is happening, and to not blame anyone or to try and find reasons why it's the way it is or anything, but just to see it as it is. But the other is for how meticulous he was, how he didn't think about himself at all. He didn't think about his own well-being. He just acted as he knew was the right way to act, both spiritually and in his role as a student, in his role as a novice. It's also funny because he actually did something wrong. He only offered with one hand, but he was perfect, even when he was imperfect.
Well, that is a very powerful story, Venerable Yutta Dhammo. I think that story is teaching us a lot about us, and also we can learn so much from it. So this novice monk did not want to do the slightest wrong thing to his teacher. That is, it shows his standard, his wisdom. Like, he even did not blame his own teacher. He said he blamed the samsara. He said the karma from the past. I think that's a beautiful story. And I'm very grateful to all the venerable monks and nuns for telling great stories to us today. And it was really enlightening. And I'm pretty sure all our friends who are watching us on Facebook and YouTube, they got to know many stories. I think now they can apply these skills in their life. And so this is the true beauty of the discussion with the Buddhist monks and nuns. And this is shedding a lot of light, a lot of wisdom that we can incorporate into our life. So I wish we had more time, but before we end this program, I would like to respectfully invite Bhante Nanda from Long Island to recite the Ovada Patimokkha for us.
Sure. So thank you very much. It was so beautiful and meaningful time we had, and thank you very much sharing all of your stories and enlightening us. So let's wind up the meeting. Sabba passa akaranang kusalassa sampada Sachitta padiyo daparang etang buddhana sasanang kanti paramang tapoti tikha nibbanang paramang vadanti buddha Nahi pabbajito paropagati samano hoti parang vihetayanto anupagato patimokke ca sangvaro Mattanyutaca pattasmin pantanca sayanasanang adhicitteca ayogo etang buddhana sasanang.
My respect and gratitude to all of you for telling us all the beautiful stories. It was really full of joy, full of joy. I feel very happy for this. This is the true unity, true wisdom. And thank you, Venerable Sirs and Venerable Nuns, for coming and telling the stories. And we will see you in 2 weeks' time. Until then, all of you have the blessings of the Noble Triple Gem for your health and safety, and stay safe and stay well. We will see you in 2 weeks' time. Okay, good night.